जाए। It says, I quote, "The handicrafted object is not merely an article of utility, it is the expression of a way of life." So, in other words, we should look at it as a way of life and also giving a lot of millions of livelihoods because of these sectors. So, with continued support, innovation, and market linkage, handlooms and handicrafts can empower artisans, preserve our heritage, and contribute significantly to India's cultural and economic growth. So once again, I congratulate two organizations and the others for this excellent report. Thank you very much.
थैंक यू सो मच सर। अब मैं हमारे मुख्य अतिथि माननीय श्री गिरिराज सिंह का परिचय देने का सौभाग्य प्राप्त करना चाहती हूँ। सर अभी करेंट टेक्सटाइल मिनिस्टर हैं और इससे पहले बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट मिनिस्ट्री संभाल चुके हैं। बिहार के एक साधारण ग्रामीण परिवेश से निकलकर राष्ट्रीय नेतृत्व तक उनकी यात्रा, सेवा, समर्पण और जन सरोकारों की प्रेरक कहानी। आइए सर।
मैं एक बार थोड़ी सी धृष्टता करूंगा, भारत माता की जय लगाऊंगा। आप जो साथ देंगे मैं उनको धन्यवाद दूंगा। भारत माता की, भारत माता की, वंदे वंदे। बहुत लोगों को कठिनाई भी होती है क्योंकि ये इंटेलेक्चुअल का ये मीटिंग है। मैं क्षमा चाहता हूं, अभी तक मैं आज के इस कार्यक्रम के लिए प्रोफेसर अलख नारायण शर्मा जी को कोटिशः धन्यवाद देता हूं कि उन्होंने जो सर्वे किया है और डॉक्टर मन्ना जो एक्सप्लेन कर रहे थे और सब लोगों ने अपनी अपनी बात को रखा, जिसमें अशोक जी की चर्चा हुई, सारे लोगों की चर्चा हुई। सब लोगों ने इस सर्वे पर धन्यवाद दिया है और कुछ कुछ बिंदुओं पर अपनी बात को रखा है। मैं इसके लिए लास्ट स्पीकर के रूप में हमसे पहले प्रोफेसर एस महेंद्र देव जी, हमारी बहन गीता राम जी, हमारे बड़े भाई तरुण दास जी, चंद्रजीत बनर्जी जी, डॉक्टर जीएस मन्ना जी, जीसी मन्ना जी, और हमारे दो अधिकारी जो इस काम को देखते हैं, डीसी हैंडलूम और डीसी हैंडीक्राफ्ट, डॉक्टर बीना और श्रीमती अमृतराज जी, डीसी हैंडीक्राफ्ट। और मैं प्रियंका त्यागी को भी धन्यवाद दूंगा कि उन्होंने इसको ऑर्गेनाइज और एक अच्छे एंकर की भूमिका में सबकी बात को रखा। अभी तक आपने, मैं क्राफ्ट काउंसिल ऑफ इंडिया, इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट को दोनों को बधाई देता हूं, जिन्होंने बड़े ही 1 साल से ऊपर मेहनत करके इसको बड़े अच्छे ढंग से रखने का काम किया है। और मैं अब उन सारे चीजों को नहीं कहूंगा जिन पर सर्वे हुआ, सर्वे की अच्छाइयों पे चर्चा हुई, उनके इनकम पर भी चर्चा हुई और सब लोगों ने चिंता व्यक्त की और कहा गया कि जो एवरेज है वो 270 रुपया है, जो बेजेज उससे भी कम है। बिल्कुल सही। आज देश को 78 साल हो गए, हमने काफी चर्चा की है 78 साल से, लेकिन इन चर्चाओं से लगता है प्रतिफल नहीं निकल पाया। और आज मुझे खुशी भी है, मैं जब किसी कार्यक्रम में जाता तो मैं समझता कि मैं सबसे नौजवान हूं, लेकिन आज नौजवानों की पीढ़ी आगे इधर उधर है। मैं सारे नौजवानों को सत सत प्रणाम करता हूं, क्योंकि तरुण दास जी सबसे नौजवान हैं हमसे। सारे लोगों को इनके अनुभव, इनकी पीड़ा, इतने वर्षों से कार्यरत इस सोसाइटी के लिए कई लोगों ने अपनी पूरी जवानी को, हमारी बहन बैठी हुई है, दिया है। लेकिन आखिर कहीं न कहीं केवल सरकार नहीं, समाज भी, क्या कारण है जो इनके इनकम इतने कम है? क्या हैंडलूम, यहां बैठे लोग, कितने लोग हैंडलूम का हम उपयोग कर रहे हैं? क्यों नहीं कर रहे हैं? ये भी एक सोचनीय है। महेंद्र जी कह रहे थे टेक्नोलॉजी, डिजाइन, ये सारी चीजों की कमी है, लेकिन मेरा मानना है हम लोग भी इस पर चिंतित, पूरा डिपार्टमेंट। आज ये बात भी सही है कि एक दो लोग काम करते हैं। जो लोग कॉटन पर काम करते, एवरेज, जब बाजार में उनका जाता तो लोग कंपेयर करते उनके प्रोडक्ट को मिल के प्रोडक्ट से। जब हम यहां बाजार हम जाते, एक ग्राहक के रूप में अपने आप को देखते, तो हम भूल जाते हम हैंडलूम के किसी डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल मार्केट में या किसी लेवल के मार्केट में दुकान, फर्स्ट प्रायोरिटी हमारा होता है चीज अच्छा भी हो और सस्ता भी हो। ये मानसिकता समाज की है। एक समय जब हैंडलूम या खादी पहनने पर गर्व महसूस होता था, आज उनके कपड़े की कीमत, उनके शर्म की कीमत नहीं मिल रहा है। करीब करीब 500 से ऊपर जीआई टैग भी है देश के अंदर। तो मन में हो रहा होगा कि आप सरकार क्या कर रहे हो, तुम क्या कर रहे हो जो दूसरे पर आरोप लगा रहे हो। मैं अपनी जिम्मेदारी भी समझता हूं, क्योंकि जिस टीम का सदस्य हूं, उनकी पीड़ा ही है कि समाज के अंतिम पावदान पर बैठे व्यक्ति का सशक्तिकरण कैसे हो। यह शब्दों में नहीं है। उन्होंने 25 करोड़ गरीबों को गरीबी रेखा से ऊपर भी उठाने का काम किया है। इसमें भी हम लोगों ने एक सर्वप्रथम इस बार हैंडलूम और हैंडीक्राफ्ट को हम लोगों ने एक साथ जोड़ करके महात्मा गांधी ग्राम स्वराज योजना के रूप में दोनों को लिया है। केवल ये काम नहीं, बल्कि मैं आपसे कहूं कि जो चिंता सर्वे के रिपोर्ट में आया है, वो चिंता ऐसा नहीं कि हमारी टीम को नहीं मालूम या हमें नहीं मालूम कि सेक्टर को आखिर देश के अंदर हमने तय किया है कि 29 हमारा विविध सर्विस सेंटर है हैंडलूम का और हैंडीक्राफ्ट। आज कॉटन में जो निश प्रोडक्ट है, चाहे मध्य प्रदेश का ले लें, चाहे उड़ीसा का संबलपुरी साड़ी ले लें, जो कॉटन में हम उन सारे चीजों को प्रमोट करके, और हमने लक्ष्य रखा है शायद कि इनकी आमदनी साल में बीभर का फर्स्ट फेज में हमने 5 लाख रुपया इनकम का रखा है, और 5 लाख तक नहीं, हम 5 लाख से 10 लाख 5 साल के अंदर कैसे इनकी इनकम को बढ़ाएं। मैं फिर से अलख जी के पूरे टीम, डॉक्टर मन्ना के को भी धन्यवाद देता हूं कि कई बीभर हैं, आपने एवरेज निकाल लिया। मैं तो कह रहा हूं जो आपने कहा है 44,000 साल की इनकम, यानी 12 चौक 48, 4,000 रुपया भी महीना नहीं होता, आपने रखा है। कैसे इनका इनकम बढ़े, ये हमारे लिए भी जरूरी है और आप सबों के लिए भी जरूरी है। उस पर भी आप मार्गदर्शन भविष्य में लिखित दें, हम आपके सलाह को, हम उसको एग्जीक्यूट करने का काम करेंगे। विभिन्न सर्विस सेंटर पर अभी हमने गुवाहाटी को टारगेट किया है। टारगेट ये किया है, अप स्किलिंग हम कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि उनके परिवार के लोग, आप लोगों ने भी, कि आ तो नहीं रहे हैं। जब नहीं आ रहे हैं, अगर मैं मिडिल मैन भी नहीं कह सकता कि आज बनारस के वीवर से, चाहे साउथ के वीवर से, चाहे जहां भी हो, कांचीपुरम के वीवर को तो 5 लाख से 10 लाख का इनकम है, हमने एक क्लस्टर के कारण। लेकिन क्या देश के हर वीवर को ये है मौका? नहीं है। तो वहां पे जो आपने कहा कि लगभग 70 लाख आर्टिजन हैं, हमने भी सर्वे विभाग ने सबको कार्ड दे करके एक अभियान चला रखा, और ये बंद भी नहीं किया कि जो आर्टिजन छूट गए हैं वो अपना उस पर आए। जब ये हमारे नंबर और आपके नंबर में कोई अंतर नहीं है, तो वहां हमने अप स्किलिंग रखा है कि अब बीभर है, बीभर तो जानते हैं बीभिंग करना, आर्टिजन है क्राफ्ट के, वो जानते हैं, उनको हम अप स्किलिंग करें। अप स्किलिंग में भी उनको मैं पैसा देता हूं। 45 दिन का है और उनको मिला जुला करके 14-15 हजार रुपया देता हूं, इसलिए कि उनको ये एहसास नहीं हो। और हमने अभी फर्स्ट फेज में 5 राज्यों के 6 विभिन्न सर्विस सेंटर को लिया है और उसमें पता नहीं मैं गलत डिसीजन लिया हूं या सही। मैंने जो पहले कहा तय किया हूं कि निश प्रोडक्ट को ही हम बढ़ाएंगे और मार्केट लिंकेज रखेंगे। ये नहीं कि वो बना लें और वो केवल चिंतित रहें, बाजार जब एग्जीबिशन लगेगा तब। इसमें सिल्क को सबसे ज्यादा हमने महत्व दिया है और जीआई टैग को, चाहे हैंडीक्राफ्ट में हो चाहे हैंडलूम में हो। और जब वो ट्रेनिंग पा लेती है आपस के लिंक का या पा लेते हैं, उनको रॉ मटेरियल भी दे रहा हूं और रॉ मटेरियल के बाद डिजाइन भी बता रहा हूं और डिजाइन के बाद उनके प्रोडक्ट को भी बाय करने का व्यवस्था किया। और ये 6 महीने के बाद इस स्टडी को या इस प्रयोग को हम फिर पूरे देश में इसे लागू करने का काम करेंगे। दूसरा हमने काम किया है कि हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी कहते हैं छोटे आर्टिजन का मार्केट, ई कॉमर्स। ई कॉमर्स की ट्रेनिंग देने के बाद अभी नंबर उसके ये नहीं है कि 7 मिलियन में 5 मिलियन का हो गया है, लेकिन धीरे धीरे नंबर बढ़ रहा है और ई कॉमर्स से हैंडीक्राफ्ट को भी फायदा हो रहा है और हैंडलूम को भी। लेकिन एक और प्रयोग अभी यूएस में एक हैंडीक्राफ्ट की ओर से एक्सपोर्ट प्रमोशन काउंसिल ने एक वेयर हाउस और उसमें हम अपने अभी जस्ट 100 आर्टिजन, 50 हैंडलूम, 50 हैंडीक्राफ्ट, उनके बेस्ट प्रोडक्ट को उस प्लेटफॉर्म पर ले जाना और उनको वहां जाने की जरूरत नहीं। उस देश में ये हब एंड स्पोक मॉडल पर उन्होंने काम किया है। हैंडलूम हैंडीक्राफ्ट के दोनों आर्टिजन को और इसका सुविधा मिलेगा। यानी भारत की सरकार नरेंद्र मोदी जी के दिशा निर्देशन में हम वो प्रयास कर रहे हैं कि अब क्वांटिटी के रेस में नहीं, क्वालिटी के रेस में, क्योंकि अभी तक हम क्वांटिटी के रेस में दौड़ते रहे और एक्सक्लूसिव लीडरशिप उसमें डेवलप करना कि किसका प्रोडक्ट क्या है। अब मैं ये चाह रहा हूं, पता नहीं ईश्वर मुझे कि जैसे हर देश का कोई ना कोई प्रोडक्ट, अब स्विट्जरलैंड का नाम लेते हैं तो कहता है वहां की घड़ी बहुत अच्छी हो। तो अब हैंडलूम और हैंडीक्राफ्ट को मैं चाहता हूं भारत का लग्जरी ग्लोबल कैपिटल बने, इसकी मार्केटिंग हो। कि अभी तक तो हैंडलूम हैंडीक्राफ्ट दुनिया में हम 95% हमारा मार्केट शेयर है ये हैंडमेड में। लेकिन या तो बिचौलिए इस काम को करते, बेचारा बीबर या क्राफ्ट्समैन को पता भी नहीं चलता। तो हम अब इसको एक ग्लोबल, भारत को एक हैंडलूम हैंडीक्राफ्ट मेरा लग्जरी प्रोडक्ट और दुनिया में है, इसकी मार्केटिंग, इसका ब्रांडिंग हम करेंगे और ग्लोबल आइडेंटिटी बनाने का जब ये होगा तो हैंडमेड इकोनॉमिक्स पर काम करना होगा। और ये कोई कहानी किस्सा नहीं है, बायर हैं देश के दुनिया के अंदर जो पैसा देते हैं, उसकी ब्रांडिंग होनी चाहिए। और मैं आप लोगों से अंतिम यही कहूंगा कि आप लोगों का सहयोग, कि ये वेलफेयर सेक्टर नहीं, मेरे मन की तमन्ना है, हमारे प्रधानमंत्री की तमन्ना है, हाई वैल्यू इकोनॉमिक सेक्टर ये बने। क्योंकि आज सस्टेनेबिलिटी का जमाना है। आज दुनिया में जो एक्सपोर्ट हो रहा है, यूरोप 20% कहता है सस्टेनेबल फाइबर मिलाइएगा तब हम लेंगे। और जब सस्टेनेबिलिटी पे न्यू एज फाइबर नाम दिया यूनाइटेड नेशन ने, जब दिल्ली के अंदर आज से 4-6 महीने पहले एक मीटिंग हुआ तो हमारे एडिशनल सेक्रेटरी गए। मैंने पूछा क्या हुआ मीटिंग में, उन्होंने कहा कि अब हम सस्टेनेबल फाइबर पर देंगे जोर। ये न्यू एज फाइबर क्या होगा? रिसाइकिल कॉटन और रिसाइकिल पेट बोतल। ये और यही यूरोप ने कहा ये दोनों रिसाइकिल अगर 20% आपके प्रोडक्ट में नहीं रहा तो हम रिजेक्ट करेंगे। अब आएगा ट्रेसेबिलिटी का सवाल। अब ट्रेसेबिलिटी के साथ साथ लोग जब उन आर्टिजन को भी उसमें देखेंगे तो जो बाय करेंगे वो करेंगे। हमने अभी न्यू एज फाइबर में केवल रिसाइकिल में तो भारत किसी से कम नहीं है। पानीपत से लेकर के तमिलनाडु तक पेट बोतल हो या कॉटन रिसाइकिल, लेकिन हम एक न्यू एज फाइबर में कुछ फाइबर को जोड़े हैं जो हैंडलूम हैंडीक्राफ्ट की आने वाले दिनों में ताकत बनने वाला है। टेक्सटाइल में भी ताकत बनेगा। वो है एक मिल्क वीड फाइबर। जो उत्तर भारत के लोग होंगे वो आध्यात्मिक दृष्टि से भोले शंकर पर मदार बोलते, नहीं तो अकान बोलते, उनके फूल चढ़ता, उसके पत्ते से दूध निकलता जो जहरीला होता। कहीं अकान बोलते, महाराष्ट्र में रुई बोलते, हर जगह अलग अलग नाम से बोला जाता। वो पश्मीना से पतला है और वूलन से गर्म है और साथ ही साथ सिंथेटिक से हल्का है, होलो फाइबर है, नेचुरल। और कॉटन से ज्यादा पानी और पिछले वर्ष प्रधानमंत्री के नेतृत्व में भारत टैक्स लगा, उसमें एक छोटा सा हम लोगों ने राजस्थान, सबसे हमारा दिल्ली से नजदीक स्टेट है, वहां बीड के रूप में, जो राजस्थान को जानते होंगे वो काफी देखते हैं, हम वहीं से प्रोक्योर किया। अभी हमारा एक निट्रा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है गाजियाबाद में, नॉर्थ इंडिया टेक्सटाइल रिसर्च एसोसिएशन, वहां 12 एकड़ लगाया। इस बार 500 एकड़ 400 एकड़ लगाने का, जिसमें उड़ीसा, मध्य प्रदेश, राजस्थान, इन सारे राज्यों को चिन्हित किया है। इस बार उम्मीद है कि हमें फाइबर कम से कम 50 टन से ज्यादा आएगा। हम इंडस्ट्रीज के साथ भी मिल रहे हैं, जब इंडस्ट्री उसको ऊपर ले जाता है, हम उसको वुलन के साथ, सिल्क के साथ उस फाइबर को मिला करके, और एक वेल स्पन करके है जो बड़ी कंपनी है, वो रजाई बना करके विदेश भेजता है। मुझे भी लद्दाख जाने का मौका मिला, मैं उसकी रजाई बनवाया 40-60 और 750 ग्राम का वो रजाई था। मैंने गेस्ट हाउस में उनके सारे सिस्टम को हटा दिया सर, और 750 ग्राम का रजाई माइनस में, फर्स्ट क्लास कमरे में, न हीटर चल रहा था कुछ, और -30 तक वो काम करता है। दूसरा फाइबर जो हैंडलूम और हैंडीक्राफ्ट से जुड़ा हुआ बैम्बू, जिसका बैम्बू की चर्चा की गई है, बैम्बू को हमने नेचुरल मैकेनिकल फाइबर पर काम करते करते अब वो मशीन भी कस्टमाइज हो गया है। तीसरा, हम लीलन फाइबर, लीलन हैंडलूम में भी खूब चल रहा है, ब्लेंडेड, क्योंकि हमें पीरा हुआ ये बेल्जियम से लीलन आ रहा है, और 2021-22 का डेटा हमने देखा 18,000 मेट्रिक टन था, जब 24-25 में देखा तो 60,000 मेट्रिक टन हो गया। तो हमारे विभाग के लिए जो आईसीआर काम करता है, मैं उनके पास गया, क्राइजेफ, मैंने कहा आपने कुछ काम किया है फ्लैक्स पर? कहा मेरे पास सीड है, वो बेल्जियम में 1.2 है, हमारे पास 1.3 मीटर हाइट का है। हमने पिछले ही साल यानी 24-25 में एक इंडस्ट्री के साथ किया, वो ठीक निकला। अब इस बार अरुणाचल से लेकर के हिमालय रेंज, यूपी, सब जगह लगवाया है, और उम्मीद है कि हम अगले बार जो अक्टूबर नवंबर में आएगा, वो फार्मर के दृष्टि से भी सही है। 110 दिन का क्रॉप है, किसान को मिनिमम 1 लाख रुपया आएगा, और हम 400 से ऊपर हेक्टर में लगा पाएंगे इस साल, जो बीज हमने प्रमोट किया है। इसी तरह एक रेमी फाइबर है, उसको भी प्रमोट कर रहे हैं, और सबसे ज्यादा अभी बनाना लगभग देश में 12 लाख हेक्टर में बनाना ऑर्गेनाइज्ड हो रहा है। नॉर्थ ईस्ट और पूर्वांचल में बनाना बैकयार्ड प्लांट हर घर के पीछे है, लेकिन वो अनऑर्गेनाइज्ड सेक्टर है। उसके लिए भी हम लोगों ने एक मॉडल बनाया है, एसएचजी ग्रुप के साथ मिल करके, उसको एग्रीगेटर के साथ मिल करके। उसी तरह पाइनएप्पल। तो मैं अंत में इतना ही कहूंगा कि हम इस बार लगभग 530 डिस्ट्रिक्ट से एक्सपोर्ट टेक्सटाइल ओवरऑल, उसमें हैंडलूम भी है, हैंडीक्राफ्ट भी है। अब हम वन डिस्ट्रिक्ट वन क्राफ्ट एक्सपोर्ट जोन कि कैसे उनका प्रोडक्ट बेहतर मार्केट में जाए, डिजाइन लैब्स भी हो, टेस्टिंग सेंटर भी हो, एक्सपोर्ट हाउस भी हो, पैकेजिंग यूनिट भी हो, लॉजिस्टिक हब के साथ इंटीग्रेटेड हो। ये आप लोगों के सहयोग से, और उसमें लगभग ओडीओपी में 1243 उत्पाद आए हैं, 773 डिस्ट्रिक्ट आए हैं और 235 क्राफ्ट आए, हैंडलूम और हैंडीक्राफ्ट को मिला करके। तो मैं इतना ही कहूंगा कि आने वाले दिन में आर्टिजन की बार्गेनिंग पावर बढ़ेगी, मिडिल मैन की पावर घटेगी, और फिर अंत में मैं आपसे कहूंगा कि ये ट्रांसपेरेंट मैकेनिज्म होगा। और आप लोग, मैंने पहले ही कहा, मुझे सौभाग्य है कि मैं किसी भी मीटिंग में जाता था, मैं कहता था आई एम ओनली 74 ईयर न्यू बेबी बॉर्न, लेकिन आज मैं वो शब्द नहीं दोहरा सकता था कि कोई 80 ईयर तो इसीलिए 94, इसीलिए मैं सारे नौजवानों को प्रणाम करते हुए अपनी वाणी को विराम देता हूं और कहता हूं अब सॉल्यूशन पर चिंता करें। ये इकोनॉमिक सर्वे जो हो गया, इकोनॉमिक सर्वे, वास्तविकता जानना भी जरूरी है, लेकिन अगर हमने अपनी गरीबी को जान लिया कि किस कारण से है, तो हमें सलूशन भी खोजना होगा। और ये सलूशन महादेव की दया से नरेंद्र मोदी के समय ही खोजा जाएगा, ये मैं आपको विश्वास दिला रहा हूं। और ये कोई मैं लिखा हुआ नहीं पढ़ रहा हूं, आप मेरे प्रयोग गुवाहाटी से हमने शुरू किया है, और जो जिस पीड़ा को आप लोगों ने रखा है, मैंने शुरू में कहा कि हमारा जो हेड है, टीम लीडर है, उसके दिल में वही प्रायोरिटी है, इसलिए हम उस टीम के एक सदस्य हैं। आपको विश्वास दिलाता हूं कि जो हमने आपके सामने रखा है उसको तो हम करेंगे ही। आप लोग भी जो सजेशन देना चाहें, प्रैक्टिकल सजेशन, थ्योरी का जमाना चला गया, थ्योरी 78 साल हो गया थ्योरी पढ़ते पढ़ते। अगर 78 साल का हम बजट जोड़ लेते तो ये 7 मिलियन के घर में अच्छे खासे चौक, उनके दरवाजे भी कम से कम सोना नहीं तो सिल्वर तो जरूर हो गया होता। तो ऐसी स्थिति में मैं आप सबों से अपनी बात को जो कहा उस पर भरोसा रखेंगे और होगा। फिर एक बार कहूंगा, बोलिए भारत माता की, भारत माता की। जिनको दिक्कत है उनसे मैं प्रणाम करता हूं।
थैंक यू सो मच, ये बहुत ही इंसाइटफुल एड्रेस के लिए। अभी आपके बारे में मैं कहीं पढ़ रही थी, आपने कहा था टेक्सटाइल इंडस्ट्री सिर्फ कपड़े नहीं बल्कि की आजीविका।
न्यू एज फाइबर पे कहा, वो सारे
बहुत आभारी हैं हम हमारे मंत्री जी की कि आप ये लाए। और ये
चलिए, ये हमने उस पुस्तिका को
ये
अब एक ऐसे रूप में ले जा रहे हैं जो अभी तक 1.5 साल में हम लोगों ने काम किया, अब दुनिया के सामने इसके सीट को भी मॉडिफाई कर रहे हैं। ऐसा नहीं है, ये एक एनवीआरआई करके सीएसआईआर का इंस्टीट्यूट है, उसके साथ मिलकर के हम ये भी कर रहे हैं। आप सबों को धन्यवाद।
मैं यही कह रही थी कि अभी माननीय मंत्री जी ने कहीं और भी कहा था कि टेक्सटाइल इंडस्ट्री सिर्फ कपड़े नहीं बल्कि करोड़ों लोगों की आजीविका और हमारी समृद्ध विरासत से जुड़ी है। आपकी आज इस महत्वपूर्ण रिपोर्ट के रिलीज पर आपकी गरिमामयी उपस्थिति हमारे लिए अत्यंत प्रेरणादायक रही और हमें विश्वास है कि आपका मार्गदर्शन इस क्षेत्र को नीति स्तर पर और अधिक सशक्त करेगा। आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आपने अपने बिजी शेड्यूल से हमारे लिए टाइम निकाला और आप यहाँ उपस्थित हुए और इस रिपोर्ट को रिलीज किया। I thank you all the dignitaries on the dais to be present at in this moment. I request all the people to be please remain seated. This is the end of the first part of this function, which was the report, and now we will move ahead with the panel discussion. Thank you very much. Give us 2 minutes as we prepare the stage. Thank you. Akash, thank you. Thank you. Akash. Ice. इस तरफ से I request all of you to please remain seated. We will start with the panel discussion in just 1 minute. Yes, sir. I request all of you to please take your seats. We will start with the next section of this program. Let's. I request all of you to please take your seats. He told me, the secretary said he's allowed. Sorry, but I spoke to the secretary. And he said, "Oh, my God." You need the video? If you want to speak. Yeah, I request all of you to please take your seats.
Thank you.
We will start with a panel discussion. Ji,
I don't think there will be time for open discussion.
Ashok sir wants to say something.
नहीं,
तो
कौन
open-
पहले बुला लेते
पहले बुला लीजिए सर.
कौन पहले बुला लेते?
Yes, I think so. Secretary Akash कहाँ है? सब लोग कहाँ हैं? I think Akash क्या होगा? Yes, I request all of you to please take your seats. We will start with a panel discussion. This panel discussion is being chaired by Professor S.R. Hashim, founder chairman of IHD.
Sir wants to address first and then.
Yes, I've already. And former chairman of the UPSC, member secretary of the Planning Commission, distinguished economist, public intellectual, decades of contribution to development policy and research, and has been an invaluable member to this project as he has guided as the chair of the steering committee. The panelists in this session are Dr. Saurabh Garg, he's Secretary, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, Government of India. I request all of you to please take your seats. Thank you. We also welcome Dr. M. Veena. She's Development Commissioner of Handlooms, Ministry of Textiles, Government of India. Okay. Ms. Amrit Raj, Development Commissioner of Handicrafts, Ministry of Textiles, Government of India. Dr. Ritu Sethi, she's Chairperson and Founder Trustee, the Craft Revival Trust. Ms. Shikha Mukherjee from the Crafts Council of India. And we are also very thankful to Dr. Dhananjay Singh, who has gone downstairs right now. He'll come back from the member secretary of CSSR. And of course, Professor Ashok Chatterjee, the advisor of the Crafts Council of India. I request Professor Hashim to please moderate this panel discussion. I request all of you to please take your seats. Need all the time to speak. Thank you so much. And thank you for being with us. Sir, it's over to you.
Thank you. Panel members and friends. We had a very vibrant session launching the report and a lot of things. I think most of the issues
Quiet please, quiet please.
pertaining to the sectors have already been mentioned and discussed. And the minister's speech was very inspiring, and I think we have a lot of hope for this sector in the future. We are short of time now, about half an hour, I'm told, for all the panelists to speak. So we divide that time among ourselves, maybe 2-3 minutes. Yeah. Each. Not more.
You need.
Our panelists are very eminent people. They know the sector, they know the developmental issues. So I think they will themselves decide what particular issue to take up for discussion. But if I briefly mention my thinking, there's no time for elaborate discussion on that also. But just one point, which I take from the summary of the report, and that is about employment. As it has come out, this sector, handicraft and handloom, or handmade sector perhaps we can call it, gives employment to about 26% of manufacturing employment, almost a little more than 1/4. And this is from the survey in the 5 states, a very quick survey, though the survey was over about 1 year, but still giving the extent of the sector, it was a very quick survey. And I think still a lot of components of the sectors would have been left out. This is a very high level of employment, as it is rightly mentioned, next to agriculture. It is this employment situation which needs focus. Already we have huge unemployment. The very fact that these workers get half of the minimum wages and still are lingering to this work, even at that wages, shows the nature of unemployment, the level and extent of unemployment in the country. And therefore, I think that should be our main focus in the future also. In spite of recognizing this sector as a heritage, cultural heritage sector, in spite of its role during independence movement as a symbol of self-reliance and Swadeshi, in spite of all that, the sector has always got a treatment on the margin. In the first part of the planning, first early years of the planning, when planning was based on a philosophy of heavy industrialization, as symbolized in the Mahalanobis, as formulated in the Mahalanobis model, this sector, along with other cottage industries, maybe includes something more, was given a residual role. It did not get a central role in the development and planning strategy. It was given a residual role of meeting the consumer needs because most of the investment was reserved for heavy industries and was not available in those days for consumer goods industries. Even after liberalization, I think when the pendulum switched, the emphasis came to growth-oriented, high productivity sectors. And these sectors remain. In spite of that, if the sector has survived, it is largely due to the persistence and obstinacy, I should say, of the workers in this sector, traditional workers in this sector, that they have maintained something. In spite of government schemes, those schemes have remained on the surface and nothing has penetrated this to encourage the sector widely. Can this sector be placed in the center of our development strategy for future employment? Because unemployment situation is going to be very difficult in the future. Even the best, the most advanced of our sectors, which were at the frontier of technology, IT sector, a layoff at a very large scale has started. And unemployed are not really the incompetent persons. Anybody can be unemployed. how do we handle the situation in the future, and what role can be given to this sector in the scheme of things. Handle the situation of unemployment. This is one thing I think needs to be discussed. Before I call upon other, I don't think there will be time for open discussion too much. So I'll request Dr. Chatterjee to speak. Please.
I think we should start with
Okay, Dr. Saurabh Kalra.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll dispense with the salutations in the interest of time, but and say a few words. I will leave the issues what the government is planning to do to my colleague Amrit, who's here. But there are 3 or 4 things which I just wanted to mention, especially given the fact that an excellent survey has been done by the Crafts Council and IHD, and in fact, thanks to them, I'm here. Uh, in our focus for Viksit Bharat 2047, we are looking at what areas we need to measure more accurately and see what we can do in that. And in fact, last year, Honorable Prime Minister, while addressing a group of civil servants, had mentioned that talking about we'll need to measure things if we need to improve them, and only if we keep improving can we transform them. And I think that's the philosophy that I'm talking about. There are 2 things that, in a way, converge in handlooms and handicrafts. One is obviously they are all informal sector, unincorporated sector, as I think was mentioned. 99% of them are proprietary, one worker, 2 worker establishments. And the second area of convergence is that they're very much a part of the knowledge sector. If we look at the skill-based artisanal knowledge, I think it's the handloom handicraft sector which encompasses that. And combination of this is what, especially given the fact that in the informal sector we have nearly 12 crore workers. I mean, estimates would vary on how much would be handlooms and handicraft, but as Dr. Hashim said, it would be the largest non-agricultural sector where it would be, and our estimates also in the same regions what this survey had found. So, given the fact that we have the largest worker force in the informal sector, and given the fact that the knowledge sector would be the areas for future investments, etc., that's how I feel fortunate to be able to address people who know handlooms and handicrafts so well. I claim no such knowledge on that. But 2 or 3 things, if I can add. Number one, we have more than 455 craft categories which have been identified and listed, and I think that all straight away gives us an area of what we need to do or what can be done. Second is, if you look at the total geographical indicators that have been issued in India, more than 50% are in this sector. It's around hardly 650, 700 we have. The others are on the foodstuffs like Darjeeling tea and Alfonso mangoes. Apart from that, nearly 50% is in handlooms and handicrafts, and I think it signifies the knowledge base that is. And it's keeping this in view. We revised the National Industrial Classification last year in 2025, and we've specifically kept a separate category for handlooms because once you have it as a part of the industrial classification, it also helps to ensure that data gets collected and that in any way is the basis for making decisions. I'm not talking about the other issues which were already mentioned on the GVA and the fact that a lot of women work in this sector, and that therefore that makes it all the more important to be able to ensure that access to credit, access to market, access to skilling, etc., is there. Just to add, since this was mentioned by some of the in the previous panel, we do an annual survey of the unincorporated sector enterprises. It's an annual survey that we do, and we have specific questions for different skills, different professions, etc. So we would be very happy to work and get suggestions on how we can improve our annual survey to get the kind of data that is required to improve the decision making in this area, which is specific to handlooms and handicrafts. I don't think I need to talk about the fact of what is the export destinations, etc., to this audience. They would be well aware of this. All I can say is that I think it's very heartening to know that the kind of surveys that we have the capacity to do in India, that IHD and CCI did that kind of a survey, because I think India is one of the few countries which has this tradition of doing surveys. And from the Ministry of Statistics, I'm proud to be able to say that the minimum survey sizes that we talk of are 100,000, and we go up to 5 lakhs. So I think because of that, we are able to get the kind of granular informations and data, and given the fact for data-driven decision making is increasingly getting recognized, we would be happy to support in whatever manner the handloom and the handicraft sector requires it. I was talking to DC, and she was mentioning about the census that they are doing, and I'm sure that when we resume or when we commence our economic census, we would be able to bring a lot more data in that. So with these words, I apologize for leaving early, but it's a pleasure that I could come and speak a bit about it, and look forward to continuing this engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Khaled. Now, Dr. Beena is here.
Yeah.
She's left. Dr. Amrit. No, Dr. Amrit Raj.
A very good evening to all of you. I had come more like an audience, I wanted to hear what the report is, because it was long awaited. Dr. Professor Ashok had mentioned that it was coming out earlier in the year. So 2-3 things which I would like to, because I have not gone through the report. So I would just like to share as to what were the challenges which the government is looking at. I think the minister addressed quite a few. Income, we are aware in the government that it is the lowest possible income which trained artisan can get in this country. My minister has a habit that every artisan he meets, he'll go in his ears and ask, what is your income? So we have all been trained over the last 2-3 years to, to understand the economic reality of this sector. And so the number which has come out is not very surprising to us. It also depends on the craft as to how they're being paid. Many of the crafts which are, which are getting good economic prices in the market, the artisans, because the numbers have gone down tremendously, so they are finally, getting some respectable wage, but the numbers are dwindling very fast. So that is a challenge which we have facing, and therefore the income reality is an issue which the government is wanting to address big time. From the economic census point of view, that is why we were awaiting this report, was that the economic census has not really handled handloom and handicraft from an individual artisan perspective at all. So it has always been entities, and the reality of Indian GDP, where the contribution of working homemakers is not accepted in the GDP, and they still have a number to peg as to what is their contribution to the entire GDP of the country. And this is a segment around 60% in handicraft and 70% in handloom, who are actually homemakers who in their spare time do craft. And so if you're not been able to quantify the role of women homemakers in the GDP, so this is a segment within further division of that segment. So this is the biggest challenge, that how do you quantify, where do you put them when you do your economic census, because they are homemakers. And when I visit the clusters, it's always about, when you ask a woman how many hours she puts into the craft, and she's not able to answer that, because it's only after she finishes entire homework that she sits with her family and she starts doing basketry, or she starts doing. It is only when the children have left the home that she actually becomes a full-time worker of the craft sector. But otherwise, she's been doing this for ages without actually putting any quantum to this number of hours she has put to the sector. So now when we do an economic census, how are we going to capture this reality? I think is the biggest challenge. We have been part of, the term which used to use is we are an unorganized sector, which Professor Ashok took objection and said you should use the word they're self-organized and they're not unorganized. But it's too long now for us that after 75 years of our existence, we still can't quantify the number. We can't quantify their contribution. We can't quantify their contribution to the economy. So the way we do maths in the government is that the only quantifiable we have in the sector is the exports. And we gauge from the sector that around 40% of what is getting produced in the sector is getting exported. So the overall production is, we do the reverse calculation, and the 60% is domestic. Of if 40 is X, then we do the reverse maths and we come to the number of what is the production of the sector. Now this is also this is jugaad. This is not the way we are supposed to have. So that is why we were really looking forward. But again, the report is sort of limiting itself to 5 states. Of course, you have picked up the big states, the good proportion of numbers. But again, what we are doing is we have, I think from what little I could make out, is we are extrapolating again as to the numbers we have, with the number of 60 lakhs which you have projected for the country is extrapolation. But if it would give us the sense of how we'll approach this topic in the economic census, the next economic census, and that is why I've requested the Secretary Mosby that we will like to make a presentation, maybe from the Indian Institute of Human Development, so to the officers, so that we can think through as to how we sort of incorporate this for the economic census which is going to come up. And with those words, I'd like to close, and I would love to hear as to how challenging the report was. Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Ritu Sethi.
I know time is short. I've been trying to cut down what I have to say. So I'm going to also race a bit. So I want to begin by saying how genuinely honored I am to be among such distinguished voices on this panel. I've had the privilege of being close to this work since its earliest days, more than a decade and a half ago. And it is something that continues to inspire and engage me. But before I begin, I want to offer my sincere congratulations to the remarkable team at the Institute of Human Development and the Crafts Council of India, especially Professor Ashok Chatterjee. For without him, this task would never have seen light of day. The dedication and rigor he has brought to this seminal report is quite simply extraordinary. Much has already been eloquently expressed by those who have spoken before me, and I echo what has already been noted. The value of this primary research cannot be overstated. It fills a genuine and long-standing data gap, and in doing so, offers something rather precious, a robust methodology that is crucially replicable, a toolkit, if you will, for a future national scale approach. And at the heart of its message that demands to be heard, no longer anecdotal but data driven, that India's artisanal sector is far larger, far more economically significant, and far more precarious than what estimates have suggested. That alone makes this a landmark contribution and one that truly deserves serious, sustained policy attention. As time is brief, I will be adding arguments on just 4 of the report's many recommendations that I have chosen to expand upon and push further. The selection is drawn from my own vantage point of field-based research and sustained engagement with policy. The first is about how we count the sector. The second is about how we classify it. The third is about how we protect it. And the fourth is how we expand the frontiers of its knowledge systems. So on to the first, about how we count it. To put it plainly but truthfully, this sector is invisible in national accounts. Not because it's small, this report proves it is not, but because the accounting framework was never designed to see it. And so every budget cycle, every policy discussion begins from scratch with the same question: how large is this sector really? What we need now, as the report recommends, is a satellite account, sitting alongside the national accounts, as does the satellite account for tourism. It would capture not just the size and gross value added, but cultural value, employment, gender contribution, regional economic multipliers, the larger ecosystem, and the networks it supports. Things that matter profoundly for policy, but disappear in standard aggregations. This framing with the satellite account is not a technical nicety. It is an economic necessity, making the invisible visible. I've scratched out the rest. So I'm going to leap to the next point about how we classify the sector. Crafts are a composite part of the creative and cultural industries, and we need to say so explicitly. The report has cited Japan, Scandinavia, UK, and the East Asian tigers, South Korea and Japan, to which I would add China, as examples of nations that have built economic strategy around their creative industry and cultural heritage. However, in our defense, it is only in the past few years that has been an altered and expanded classification, one that goes beyond individual or institutional creativity to include traditional crafts and textiles that are rooted in community knowledge and joint practices. This recognition of community creativity within the cultural and creative economy is a significant opportunity, as we in India have the largest artisanal base. This reframing of the craft sector within the creative industries, also known as the orange economy, would serve in highlighting the economic value generated by creativity and cultural heritage, and position it as a major pillar of growth, employment, and value creation. For artisans who have historically operated in the informal economy, this classification would place them non-hierarchically, shoulder to shoulder really, with professionals in other sectors of the orange economy, overcoming the dignity and recognition deficit. This framework has also important implications for the youth and for aspiration, crucially changing how young people see the sector as a career and attracting talent in a way that perhaps other labels couldn't. The third point is how we protect it. The report recommends strengthening geographic indications. At present, as the Secretary Mosby said, out of the GIs that have been issued, over 50% are in the sector. The GI itself is a sui generis instrument designed to address specific needs that standard legal frameworks cannot adequately meet. It is the only intellectual property tool available that applies to community knowledge of arts, crafts, and textiles, and therefore this increasing number. But GI is an incomplete instrument. For as we are all aware, it is fundamentally a commercial origin tool. It tells consumers that a product comes from a specific place and meets certain standards tied to that place, with its primary purpose being to prevent market deception. It does not protect the knowledge behind it or the cultural expression it carries. For a community outside the region can legally replicate the knowledge and method, they simply cannot use the protected name. So what I'm arguing for is an addition to the Sui Generis Act, specifically designed for traditional knowledge. And this is not untested ground. For Kenya gives communities direct legal standing to protect, control, and benefit from their heritage. Australia has developed protocols covering benefit sharing. Panama, Peru, and the Philippines have also moved ahead with similar frameworks that treat community knowledge as a collective living asset, more rather than a public domain material available for appropriation. India has the Biological Diversity Act and indeed GI as sui generis precedents, but a dedicated act to address this gap is now needed. For in this age of digitization, copying, and faking, and this was very clearly elucidated as one of the problems faced by the craft sector, the artisanal sector sits at exactly this intersection, where this absence is costliest and the most visible. My fourth and last point is about how we expand the knowledge horizon. The tacit embodied intergenerational knowledge that lives inside craft practice itself, that passes from hand to hand, from teacher to apprentice. And actually, as the report said, 70% were tutored within the home, outside educational institutions. This knowledge has never been written down or codified. But on closer inspection, it is rooted in deep and sophisticated knowledge systems that quietly preceded the formal disciplines that would later claim the same grounds. For it encodes chemistry, structural geometries, and principles of metallurgy and engineering, and an internal logic such as that of the loom, which is computational. Also among its many other connections to disciplines now taught in universities. These crafts are not pre-modern. They are differently modern. They do not belong to a frozen past. They are living systems of knowledge capable of innovation, adaptation, and dialogue with contemporary practice. To treat them otherwise is to misread them entirely. The argument then is that we must connect craft knowledge to our knowledge institutions as a living source of inquiry, just as we have done spectacularly with design schools across the country. We need business schools working with artisan clusters on supply chain design, pricing models, and enterprise structures, and as suggested in the report on accounting practices. Engineering schools documenting and analyzing the structural and material intelligence embedded in traditional making, science departments in conversation with natural dye makers, forest knowledge holders, and others, while design schools continue deepening their engagement. Building these institutional bridges will create a distinctly Indian model of innovation, one rooted in knowledge systems that are indigenous, plural, and still generative. This is both an intellectual frontier and an economic one, and it is remarkably one that India is uniquely positioned to lead. Some aspects of these points and were positions that I had opportunity to place before the G20 expert committee, first during India's presidency and subsequently under the South Africa's presidency. They found their way into the Kashi Cultural Pathway document of August 2023 and were reiterated in the document issued by South Africa the following year. That these arguments have been recognized at multilateral policy deliberations is significant, but recognition is not application. Before I conclude, I want to reiterate that what this report has achieved is significant. It has grounded the sector in a sound and credible economic base, moving the conversation decisively beyond the anecdotal, beyond the impressionistic claims and well-meaning estimates that have for too long substituted for rigorous evidence. The methodology for measurement has been demonstrated and demonstrated outstandingly. For this, I again offer my sincere congratulations to the Institute of Human Development and the Crafts Council of India. The sector can now be seen, measured, and argued for with the authority that data confers. What remains now is the imagination to see this sector for what it truly is, an intellectual and economic frontier, and the will to invest in it accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sethi. Now, may I invite Ms. Shikha Mukherjee?
Thank you, Dr. Hashim. Ritu has taken the discourse to a level which I will leave it there. And I will come down to brass tacks because, frankly, my domain is not that kind of discourse. So I would think that one of the most important things this survey has achieved is to highlight the contribution of women and their participation in the production and manufacturing of handloom and handicraft products. Women's participation, as we have heard, is, especially as the DC spoke about it, it's unpaid labor, fine, but it requires now, if we recognize that this is a very important sector, a vital sector to India's economic growth and development, then it's high time we recognize all the participants in this sector. And women are part of it. And unpaid labor, just because it's a hassle to quantify it, to measure it, doesn't mean that it can be ignored. So it's time that this shift happens within how national economic data is computed. That is the missing link. And I think that is a link that needs to be understood. The second thing is that when you're looking at the kind of employment that the sector is offering, I think we should, Dr. Manna will bear me out, that a lot of this employment is perhaps underemployment, disguised unemployment, and we have to recognize the reality of it. I think Dr. Hashim was also referring to this. And I think it's very, very important that if we are looking at the fact that this is a large sector employing so many people, we also have to recognize that the sector is in some ways a sanctuary for people who don't have work. That is what became very evident in the COVID period. And I think this is one of the strong points that comes across in this report, and it has to be recognized. So what it does effectively is highlight a problem of underemployment, unemployment, and disguised unemployment. And the sooner we recognize that reality, the more specific we can be in terms of estimating the strength of this sector, its resilience, and what do we do about the employment aspect of it? Because if this is the employment situation, then at no point are we going to be able to raise wages above the 270, 300 level. So we need to recognize this as a reality. And I will leave it there because I think one of the things that this report does, very importantly, is open up a lot of questions. What was kept vague is no longer vague. It is very, very specific. And it should all be put out on the table, and everyone needs to participate in discussing it. That's the second thing. also the fact that, this is a sector where we find that there is both out-migration and in-migration. That is one aspect of this sector in terms of its employment and its potential, where we have to look at what happens in there. People during the COVID period in-migrated into the sector. Post-COVID, they're probably migrating out of the sector because at 270 rupees a day, who wants to work here? And this is what, has been talked about as loss of skills, de-skilling, loss of technical knowledge, etc., etc. People find, top-end master craftsmen, master weavers complaining, we don't have people who can do the work. So there also, if we're talking about a great future for India's crafts and handlooms, then we have to figure out how to keep skilled people engaged. Not just have them, going in and out of the sector, losing skill, and then coming back with lower levels of skill. So these are all, I think, what this survey does is an outstanding job of telling us what are the problem issues and where we need to address them as a sector. Because it's all very well to talk about the problem as the artisan has described it as occupational health and safety, lack of access to or delivery of welfare and other benefit schemes from the government side, both at the state and as well as at the national level. Things like the problem of competition from copying, by which I assume they mean the sale of so-called ikat print sarees, which are gross, which are really gross, because ikat as print for the undereducated, it becomes a kind of statement of what they're wearing. Aspiration, yes. So I think what this report does is open up a lot of questions, require us to take a hard look at what it is telling us, and then look at what we are doing and figuring out what should be our own next steps. A, as organizations who are working within this sector, B, as government, which has drawn up programs but needs to re-examine them. And the last and final thing I will say is one of the issues that this report brings into focus is the fact that we've all been working with a certain limitation of the definition, which also means that the number of craft and handloom industry varieties, diversity, etc., that we need to deal with is not captured within this data. So, if we don't know how much we have left uncaptured, actually. That's the big thing. And I think this report actually brings that into focus. What have we not been able to capture? We have captured a lot, but what have we not been able to capture? So I think this is a kind of opening of the floodgates, and I hope it stays open. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mukherjee. Now, may I invite Dr. Dhananjay Singh.
Thank you so much, Professor Hashmi. It's an honor to be asked to speak this August gathering. Professor Mahendra Devji and we have the chairman of GIDR here, and so I'm a late addition, and I was asked to speak, so I've quickly got some data. So the reason why I'm here and why Professor Sharma thought I should be here is this, that I represent the Indian Council of Social Science Research, where I am currently the member secretary. And the Institute of Human Development is one of the recognized institutes of ICSSR. So in all, we have 37 institutes in the country, granting aid and recognized. And so perhaps given I've been given an opportunity to express my great pleasure and sort of satisfaction at the successful completion of this very important report. And to your relief, I'll not take more than 3 to 4 minutes. So, well, you know, I mean, as I'm a student of literature, I'm a professor of English at Jawaharlal Nehru University, so, and on deputation to ICSSR. So it's a great, been a great opportunity to be more informed in the gathering today. And I was looking at some of the critical findings of the report, which is that in terms of wages, in terms of the fact that with agriculture, this is a sector which employs a lot of Indians who are poor and marginals. But as you know, this is not something new, because ever since, I mean, we were kids, you know that you have to support the handloom sector, you know, the handicrafts. I'm originally from Bihar, but grew up in Arunachal Pradesh. So, you know, in all district headquarters, you'll have, you know, those small kind of, you know, infrastructures where you're asked to go and visit. There's something that's not picked up. All I can say here in those 3 minutes is this, that Indian Council of Social Science Research has also prioritized research on handloom and handicraft, and I would like to talk about a bit and in this gathering, so that there could be more kind of advanced research and critical engagement as to what are the solutions. Obviously, this was a survey, and economists do wonderful surveys, of course, but we think that we also rely on qualitative studies, and Indian social science has been for decades deficiency narratives. And therefore, I think we need also to look for solutions, as has been said in different words this evening. As far as the Indian tradition is concerned, as far as the Indian cultural, intellectual tradition is concerned, which Dr. Sethi mentioned a bit, you know, there was a poet in the 8th century. Pardon me for going to literature. So Rajshekhar Kavi Mimamsa, which can be translated as hermeneutics of literature, who came from Malda in Bengal, and he suggests that every poet, anybody who aspires to be poet in this country, should have efficiency and should have knowledge in 64 colors, of course, which included weaving, which included pottery, right? Which included all the handloom that we talked about. Every poet. I mean, if you do not have efficiency in these crafts, then you cannot be a poet. So the paradigm for arts, and therefore you say arts and crafts, was very different from the Greek, where you know the carpenter was different than the poet, and the poet had no place in the Commonwealth, in Athens, for instance, in the Commonwealth, as it was conceptualized by Plato. So the point that I'm trying to make here is this, that that handloom and handicraft should in fact become an important part of our intellectual and experiential discourse, because handicraft or handloom is not simply an economic activity, because you're talking of intergenerational reality and importance of handloom and handicraft. I would just mention, I'll finish in 2 minutes, don't worry. And ICSSR, and why I want to present the view of ICSSR here. So we have longitudinal studies that we have funded on intergenerational transfer of knowledge and practices among the handloom clusters in Orissa. Currently, there are there are 50 research projects which are specifically dedicated to handloom and handicraft, with an objective that we get not only the data but also the insights. We have community members, of course. There are researches that are based on the community. For instance, we have the Godri craft community of Gujarat and Rajasthan. There's a research that is currently going on where we need to listen to the communities. I mean, this is a wonderful research work, but it would be wonderful to have some people here and talk to them, talk to us what their problems are. Who is a social scientist in the country? A social scientist necessarily is not somebody who studied in a university that I studied, which is JNU. I'm really proud of it. It made a son of a farmer. My father is a small farmer in Bihar. It made me capable that I'm here. I'm grateful to my university, of course, but should listen to them. So there are studies which therefore focus and prioritize the community. There are studies that therefore also focus on the women. We actually started a special research project under the Viksit Bharat call for research projects at ICSSR. There was one which was dedicated only to researchers. For the first time in the history of Indian Council of Social Science Research, we started a scheme called Women-Led Research on Women-Led Development. And 13 of these studies are on handloom and handicraft, area. Of course, like I can just there's some of it. I just want this August gathering to know about it. For instance, there's a study on the socio-political empowerment and gender equity among the Nakshi Kantha women artisans in Birbhum district of West Bengal. Just to give an example, tribal women, for instance, crafting futures, indigenous weaving practices as tools for women's empowerment and heritage preservation in Karnataka. ICSR studies on handicraft and handloom covers the entirety of this country, almost every state. And our researchers, our early career researchers, not yesterday, but on 12th of May, we've announced a new research scheme dedicated to undergraduate students for the first time again, because of course NEP talks about research in the 4th year. I don't have time, of course. I must have at least taken 5 minutes, but just to say that I have used my Alakji just I went out. I thought that this was best for me to learn, but he said, no, I have to speak because of ICSSR, and I'm so happy to have shared some information with you. And then to say that as research communities, of course, as stakeholders in research, I think it would be good for us, of course, to take also the responsibilities. Of course, pointing out the problem is, of course, extremely important. It's half the solution, but also coming up with creative solutions. And creative solutions cannot be state-jacketed, as you know. You need to specifically go and talk to the communities, link it with the market, society, industry, and artisans. Interface needs to be created, in clusters. So thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Singh. Now, in fact, I have been looking forward to your speech, Professor Chatterjee. And I think all of us have been looking forward to it. Please take your time, because this will be the last. Can see from here if you like.
I think we are very fortunate to have ICSSR as a partner in this effort because the social sciences are so important to the sector. We've heard a lot. There's not time. I think we've already switched off the air conditioner, which is a hint in high summer that we should wrap up. But I just want to take this opportunity to take you back a little bit as to why we have done this study. We just heard about the importance of interface with artisans. That is what the community that has been working, it's taken us 16 years to reach this point. 16 years. And those 16 years have been 16 years of interaction with artisans. This report is a statistical report, but the message of this report is well beyond statistics. The message of this report is the well-being of human beings, the well-being of nature, and the well-being of this planet. So we have taken one particular aspect, which is the economic aspect, and we have concentrated on that. So I do hope that you will take time to read the summary, ask for the full report. The soft copy will be available. Please go into it and please understand it. But please also understand the constraint. The entire sector is not just about statistics. It is about human beings. It is about a civilization. It is about a tradition of which this subcontinent, and I underline the subcontinent, because everything that has been said in this report is shared by every nation on this subcontinent. This subcontinent represents the world's largest resource of artisanal wisdom. It is not an informal sector. It is a differently formal sector. It is not an unorganized sector. It is a differently organized sector. And we have demeaned it all these years by using terms which marginalize this huge Indian advantage. And this huge Indian advantage is not just about the transition of tradition into modernity. It is the fact that this sector does not just talk about the past, it represents the future. And why do we say that? You go back to the Sustainable Development Goals, there's no other industry in India which can claim to directly contribute to 11 of the 17 SDGs. None of them can. And yet, the contribution which artisans make to sustainability is never reported to the UN system because we don't have the data. So the reason for this effort is to start putting the data together. It's not the first time this was done. Others have attempted over the years, and we need to recognize that. Rajiv Sethi, while he was at the Planning Commission, took some of the first steps in this direction. Maureen, are you here, Maureen? Yeah, oh, she's just left. Maureen Leibel and Professor Tirthankar Roy in 2003 wrote an article in the Economic and Political Weekly. That's where we started. In 2003, they brought to our attention that this gigantic sector was being ignored. We didn't realize how important that is until around 2000, after liberalization, globalization, when we were told at the highest levels of decision-making in this country that we who are serving the craft sector are wasting our time. That this sector had nothing to offer India's growth into a global power. And the term that was used was, this is a sunset industry. Document it, put it in museums, it's not relevant to tomorrow. The reality is that this sector represents what the global community has taken down as the true measures of progress, not just for human beings, but for the planet and for the natural systems as well. So please understand, this is a very complex and diverse sector. It has huge implications. One part of it we're concentrating on this evening, but there's much, much more. It's a civilization we're talking about. It is a natural environment that we're talking about. And it is the empowerment of people who have been left at the margins of Indian society for all these years. This sector comprises, the numbers you have heard, primarily those who are at the margins. Women, tribal communities, the rural poor, minorities. They constitute this fantastic Indian advantage. And our hope is that by bringing the economics of the sector onto the table, we will get attention to the environmental, cultural, personal, spiritual, intellectual, all those things that make the craft sector what it really is and why it is so important to our existence as Indians, as people of the subcontinent in the future. I'd just like to end by saying that this is an enormous opportunity for us to thank some of those who have been Humsafars on this journey. Some of them were here, they've gone. I particularly wanted to recognize Dr. Saida Hamid. She was one of those few people who, when we did our initial research that you've heard of in 2009, in 2012, gave us the opportunity to present our findings to the Planning Commission. Dr. Pranat Sen at the Planning Commission and Dr. Saida Hamid then sent us across to Sardar Patel Bhavan because the 6th economic census was about to be unrolled. It had been delayed due to some election schedules. We were told that you probably won't be allowed to have a cup of tea because they've already printed all the forms. They were stacked up to the ceiling on every floor of Sardar Patel Bhavan. And we entered the office of one of the Dr. Ashish Kumar. Ashish Kumar, are you here? Ah, there you are. We entered his office. And he said, I suppose we've been told that we can't even consider anything now because he printed all these forms in all these languages. But he said, I began my career in Nagaland. Isn't that what you said? And he said, I know what you're doing, and I'm on your side. This miracle brought us to where we are today because we got that one extra column. Millions of these sheets were reprinted. We participated in the economic census process. We learned for the first time how important statistics was. And we also then, as time went on, we had this wonderful partnership with the Institute of Human Development with Dr. Manna. Dr. Manna, at the time of the economic census, was at part of that. And so we had a great deal of interaction with him. I also want to recognize some of my, Ruchira is here, Ruchira Ghosh, an economist who's been working in this sector. She was also at the Crafts Museum and helped us out. Mr. Gopal Krishna Gandhi, who helped us to organize a seminar in Calcutta soon after we did our initial field work in Kutch and in Tamil Nadu. And it was that bringing together academics, economists, and people from the craft sector in Calcutta, which led us then to know that we would have to do this research on a scale that would provide some credibility. So I'm extremely grateful to that. It took us all these years, and I must tell you, not a single rupee of government money has gone into this. It's an entire civil society initiative because we refused to believe that this was a sunset sector. We knew that there was something wrong in the whole mentality that could even use such a term to describe India's craft heritage and its craft future. But that belief came from stakeholders who shared this passion, not just in India, but on the subcontinent. And every step along this way over these past years, we have shared with our neighbors on this subcontinent and with other countries who also face the similar challenge of being able to understand the economic strength of creative and cultural industries. So there's a huge list of people that I should thank, and I'm not able to do that because of the time limit. And I know that in a minute, probably the lights will go out. So, but I would urge you, please, to read the report with care. Please understand its constraints. And please remember one thing. This entire report is based on a definition of the craft sector, which was articulated in the 8th five-year plan. And it has concentrated on the crafts which are under the purview of the Ministry of Textiles. Just keep that in mind, because the Ministry of Textiles has a particular list of crafts, and that is what is reflected here. But if we are going further, then with the help of the Ministry of Textiles, with the help of other ministries as well, one of the most important challenges we will face is how do we define the craft sector? Because those crafts which are under the Ministry of Textiles is a huge number, but there are hundreds of other crafts, from recycled products to sports goods, to surgical instruments, to precision components for the engineering industry, to the building trade, to all kinds of other industries which depend on hand skills. And this is the khasiyat which India has, and we must not lose it. These crafts that are represented in this study are therefore only the beginning. And one of the big challenges we will now have, if we are able to go further, is to define crafts in a way in which the economics of the sector can be truly reflected. So thank you very much for your interest. Thank you for being here. Please keep in touch with us, and please join this struggle. And it's still a struggle until that 270 rupees becomes 2,700 rupees a day. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chatterjee.
Copy of the report.
I thank you all.
I'll just get you the copy. So this brings us to the end of this very enriching evening. But sir, I can say we leave on a very hopeful note. There are 2 PhD scholars who are doing their research. The future is secure, sir. People have understood. The young generation will take this up. And I would like to thank all of you for joining in. Congratulations to ISD, CCI, the entire team. And heartfelt gratitude to all chairs, panelists, and discussants, to CCI, Manjari ma'am, Sophia from CII, deep thanks a ton, Sophia, Vignesh, and entire team at ISD, Jyoti, Rekha, Chaiti, Akash, Arunat, Mrityunjay, our accounts officer, talent support, every coordination designed from Arzu, Nisar, Amarjeet. So thanks a ton, team. Good job. So you want to say something?
I just want to, you've heard about how this whole sector.
Excuse me, may I have your attention, please? Request your attention, please. Yes, sir.
Where is Dr. Amritji? Where are you? Oh, here we are. I want to point out.
Yes, please.
May I have your attention, please? Please give a hand to Amrit Raj and Dr. Beena, who's had to rush off to the airport. These 2 ladies, Development Commissioner of Handlooms and Development Commissioner of Handicrafts, they represent what this sector is all about. Women leaders at the top of these 2, actually, and at every stage, they've given us advice, support, and guidance to get us to where we are today. So I want to thank you very much.
Well, I'll fail my responsibility. Vikas is here. He has helped us a lot. And the entire video team. Thank you very much, audio video team. And of course, Ashok sir, Thank you for leading us on, and Professor Alokesh Sharma. Okay, somebody has found this. If it belongs to somebody,